Blankets is the new studio album by Kevin Abstract, his first solo project in about 4 years, and also the first one since the breakup of the group Brockhampton, which he was the leader of. It's been about a year now since The Family and TM came out in November 2022. The final Brockhampton albums, The Family basically being a Kevin Abstract solo album, hardly featuring any of the other members, and TM being the last real Brockhampton collaborative effort with all the members involved. Though they were not my favorite Brockhampton albums, though I think they made better albums, I thought they were good concluding pieces of work for the group. I was happy with both of them. As I believe I mentioned in my review of TM, I'm very curious to see what all the members do after this, how they move on with their careers post their Brockhampton time. This is obviously not Kevin's first time veering into his own solo territory. He's made plenty of music before this, even while Brockhampton was still active and still coming out with music. Kevin was putting out stuff too, but this is his first full-length project since the breakup of Brockhampton. So of course, naturally I was, as a Brockhampton fan, as a Kevin Abstract fan too, intrigued to see where he would go with this, if there would be sort of any awareness of the ending of Brockhampton, if that would play into the direction this album would go in, or if he would just ignore that, do his own thing. What kind of music would it be, because he also blends different genres from time to time. And with Blankets, Kevin has basically made a rock album, which might seem surprising to the casual Brockhampton fan, or even the casual Kevin Abstract fan, but for me, it's just really not that much of a surprise at all, actually. If you consider what his influences are, if anything, I'm actually surprised that he hasn't really gone down this direction before, at least in a full album. But Kevin here really does seem to be embracing a lots of modern indie rock, alt rock tropes, not actually too modern, maybe more like late 2000s, early 2010s influences that I picked up on, as well as even some 80s alt rock and indie rock influence. That was kind of, the 80s was when alternative rock was starting to become less of an underground genre and become more mainstream. And also point out later, there are certain bands here that I feel like Kevin is, maybe not intentionally calling back to, but coming up with similar sounds as they had back in the day. In the first track, When the Road Post to Break, Kevin has these very heavily auto-tuned vocals. They sound a lot like Silver Sun pickups, if you guys are familiar with that band. The vocal styling reminded me of them, which I really was not that into at first. It was a little awkward and just wasn't really working for me, but on repeat listens, I started to lean into it a little more and kind of be okay with it, but it's still, I don't think, is as good as other vocal performances later on the album. I think it's a pretty good intro on the whole, though. There's a kind of catchy guitar lick that repeats throughout it, and a good middle passage as well, where we get these synth and piano parts that add some good diversity to the instrumental. Blanket goes pretty much full-on indie rock with these fuzzy guitar parts and these whoas that appear in the song, because we all know a classic indie song has to have some sort of whoa or hey refrain. It's okay. It really is more of like an interlude rather than an actual song. I can kind of go without it, to be honest. Running Up picked up the pace a little bit on the album from the last track. There's more of a steady drum beat going on here. And at this point, I am also starting to get a little more used to the vocals just at this part of the album. I'm kind of a little more fine with them. There's also a pretty catchy little whispery refrain that happens in the track that I did like. Getting out, and I'm running out, and I'm getting out, and I'm running out. The Grays is a highlight for me personally. I like that Kevin's vocals here are way less auto-tuned. It actually does sound like him, to be honest. The first few tracks is a little unrecognizable. Here, this is obviously him though, and I like the sound of his voice. And this is where I start to see some of the 80s style creeping into the album. 80s alternative rock with these jangly guitar parts. The drums especially sound very 80s. I don't know about other people, but I feel like a lot of 80s pop music, just the drums, they all sound so loud and compressed. It was just a thing for the time, whatever. About halfway through the song, Kevin starts this almost mantra-like melody of these ahs which I thought actually was kind of cool and led to a pretty sweet instrumental break at the middle of the song. I wrote it down in my notes. This song overall to me is like if the Pixies and REM had a baby. I feel like they would have made something similar to this, or if they collaborated in any way, the song kind of would have sounded like this. Voyager is a track that I struggled to get into initially. It is a love song. He's writing about this person that he likes spending time with over the summer and wants to sleep over with them and has all this love and affection for them. And I thought, whatever, kind of generic stuff. But then about the middle through the song, it really does pick up for me, and you get these really great group vocals that come in and these strings. And it's a very pretty sound, I think, in the second half and a good ending to the song. However, one of the prettiest moments on the album is followed up by one of the most annoying songs on the album, in my opinion, Madonna. The hook, I just really can't get past on here. The chorus, it really is kind of grating to my ears. It's sort of a Cage the Elephant-like hook. I feel like something they would write, but not nearly as catchy as something they would write. However, I do really like the following track, Today I Gave Up. This feels kind of grungy to me, and it actually feels, with how stripped back it is, like something that one of those 90s grunge bands would have performed on MTV Unplugged. You know, like Alice in Chains, for example, would have a heavier, more distorted sounding song in the original recording, but then perform a stripped back, minimalist arrangement of the track. Kind of reminds me of that. And yeah, I'm just really enjoying the track. I'm enjoying the rawness of it, and it's a little emo too, gotta be honest. Kevin's kind of dipping into his emo side, and I'm all for it. I think he's sounding good doing it. What Should I Do is an interesting track because it sounds happy on the outside, and there's even this sort of fun guitar plucking in the track, and it overall just has a feeling, a vibe of optimism coming out of it. But the lyrics are somewhat sad and sort of a downer. Really seems to be at the core talking about someone that he wants to be with, but just can't be with, in a nutshell. Following this, we get Mr. Edwards, a basically 52-second little interlude on the album with this really fuzzy, distorted guitar part and kind of strange doubling of Kevin's vocals. It's weird, but it's really short, so I can kind of give it a pass. Scream returns back to sort of stripped back instrumentation of previous tracks with this cool electric guitar strumming being kind of at the forefront of the mix. And I like Kevin's vocals in this track, and specifically the way that his flow is. He's not really rapping, but at times he's almost singing at a pace where he is borderline rapping. Kind of feels Frank Ocean-esque at times. Real to Me kind of returns to that Silver Sun pickup style of vocals, higher pitched, very auto-tuned, which I'm honestly not as into at this point in the album. Like, I feel like there's enough time where he didn't sound like that. Now he's back to sounding that way, and it's a little inconsistent with the rest of the album. It's a catchy little track, but it does also just kind of loop and doesn't really have as much diversity within the instrumental's progression, if that makes any sense at all. I wish it kind of just did more rather than doing the same thing over and over again. Heights, Spiders, and the Dark is ironically one of the darker sounding songs on the album. There seems to be maybe a use of some slide guitar here. I don't know if it actually is, but it sounds that way. And what's interesting is that Kevin, on several moments of this album, whoever he is talking about, he seems to have a clear love and affection for them and a desire to be with them romantically, but he's also keeps saying, my friends, you're my friend, this and that. So I wonder if there is some hesitation, some contradiction with the way that he's describing this person, and if he's even aware of it, if that's what he's intending. There's another track that does kind of interest me lyrically, but it is just too short, in my opinion. I wish that he kind of fleshed it out a little more. It's only about 2 minutes long. Just wanted it to be longer. And funny enough, the last track is called My Friends, and this one is kind of a sweet, pleasant sounding song. It kind of goes in the country direction as well with the instrumentation. But again, I kind of wish at this point he went into more detail and wasn't as vague with the lyrics in these last few tracks. I do just feel like overall the ending, while it has some enjoyable moments, didn't go the extra mile that I was wanting it to go. It didn't have really a triumphant finish that tied all of the lyrical themes of the album together. That is Blankets. That is the whole album, Blankets. Pretty solid album on the whole, actually. I think for Kevin, kind of just going full throttle into the rock direction, which again, he was not a stranger to before. I think he was a pretty successful attempt at that. Yeah, not much else to say though. It's cool. I think it'll be cool if he continues in this direction. If he doesn't, that's cool too. Like it for me, it's going to get a 7 out of 10. Pretty solid album. I liked it. I'm wondering when the other Brockhampton members are going to come out of the rock that they're hiding under and drop some music. I'm sort of joking, but at the same time, like, is there going to be anything? I'm just very curious. You know, I'm a big Brockhampton fan, so I want them to come out with more. As a fan, I really like them too. But of course, you know, take your time, do it at your own pace, obviously, all that stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed the review. Very curious to know what you think of this album, if you've heard it. Any standout tracks, you know the deal. And that is all I have for you. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Peace out.